Hi everyone, I hope you're all doing well. It's been quite some time since my last update, and I really wanted to do an update before the final hearing, but now it's after. And actually, there was a video that I recorded several weeks ago, but I didn't post it right away, and then the 1 week went past, 2 weeks went past, and it never happened. But anyways, I wanted to do another video update on everything that's going on. I feel like this is like the easiest way for me to communicate with all you what's going on than having like 100 different conversations going over the same lengthy thing. So I feel like this is the best way to do this. So sorry that sometimes a bug just flew on top of my shoulder. All good. But anyways, so yes, today's Tuesday, and yesterday I had the final hearing, or the only hearing to this custody case that has been going on. So that was filed by me in June of last year. And so I just kind of want to share with you what's kind of all been going on with that. So my thoughts going into it were kind of like this, or basically, my expectations going in, and I'll probably say this a few times, I'm not limiting what God can or can't do, but my basic limited human understanding from what I have read, what I've already gone through, what I know about how the system is, especially dealing with the difference between fathers and mothers and custody, just in a general sense. Going into this hearing, things that I knew were going to pose a challenge is the fact that, this hearing was delayed like 3 times, and this was the fourth time, or the rescheduled to be the fourth date that we're trying to get this thing done. And so almost like an entire year, because the first hearing that we were supposed to take place was supposed to take place in August last year. So anyways, with that being said, one of the big factors that comes into play just naturally in and of itself is the time that my daughter has spent in Texas. Back, if any of you remember, been part of In the Loop, over a year ago, my ex moved from Savannah to Minnesota back in Easter of last year, and then a month after being in Minnesota notified me that she was moving to Texas. I wasn't surprised, but certainly that wasn't the expectation of the court anyways. And so a month after moving to Minnesota, she notified me that a month that she'd be moving to Texas. Then she had moved to Texas, and within a month of moving to Texas, she got remarried. Okay, to the man that she denied of having anything to do with. Basically, the person involved that really kind of set the ball rolling for the whole divorce and everything else to come. So anyways, one of the big factors here is the time that Atlanta has been in Texas. And the amount of time that she has spent in Texas, the amount of time that she has spent in her daycare, which eventually will become preschool, and if nothing changes, will also be her kindergarten. And so she's been at DeColoris for almost a year. It'll actually be a year in August, so I guess we got some time before that's really fully a year. But the time that she's been there is a pretty important factor when the court considers these things, so they don't want to keep moving children around. And, we can understand that. And so her being there for a year, being established in a school, daycare, preschool, whatever, that's really one of the biggest factors there is that time spent there. So if this hearing happened in August, this would be a very different case much more likely for an overturn to happen. But that's not the case. Things got postponed. I think that was pretty well executed by the opposing counsel to get a couple of them rescheduled. One of the hearings wasn't their intent. Was unfortunate family circumstances of my lawyer. But the other ones were strategically planned and did postpone it quite a bit to get that time factor in there. Other factors we're dealing with is, yes, there is still, as much as we think of different equality in society, there is definitely a huge difference between favor of father and mother in the courts when it comes to child custody. Mothers end up with child custody somewhere in the 70 to 75% of the time. And when they don't, it's broken down into mother was like abusive, neglectful, abandoned the kids or didn't want the kids at all. That's like the 20, 25, 30% of when the father ends up with the child. So it's hard coming from a father's side of things. Anyway, so we're dealing with those factors, and those are kind of some of the things that were up against us. So, not actually having actual physical or known sexual abuse or anything like that happening, that kind of had things a little tougher for us on our side. So my thoughts going into it with those things being said, and then of course the whole rebuttal to all the lies that were told by my ex in court, and this would be the chance to expose all those things, and you'll see that as you get further on that they were. But my general expectation going in, I guess what you call realistic expectation, is that the custody would not be overturned because courts are extremely reluctant to overturn something they already give a ruling on, unless there's a significant factor such as abuse, like actual abuse going on, like pretty blatant. Unless something like that, abuse or severe neglect, they're pretty reluctant to overturn custody. So going into it, my thoughts were probably not going to get custody flipped. They're probably not going to make her move back. If they knew all they did now back when we had the original divorce case, there wouldn't have been a move. But that's not where we are, and that's not the circumstance now. So I was guessing that custody would not be flipped, that she would not have to move back, but that maybe some of my burden might get lifted, and that definitely a lot of my daughters and my rights and our rights together would be more defined and more protected and might get more time together. But the biggest, so those are kind of like what I thought may be the outcome of it. And, for those who've been following for a while with everything going on, the real reason why I filed for modification in custody wasn't just because she misled the court and lied to the court and all that stuff or anything like that. It's really because the man who she's married to, who I just am extremely concerned about him being around my daughter and the possibility of potential sexual abuse in the future. There's things from his past and his family history in connection together that gives me great pause for him being around my daughter. And so I actually didn't, went back a year ago, I didn't really want to file this. I don't really have the money, didn't have the money. I had to borrow money, and I'm going to have to pay that money back. And I had to go into debt, more into debt. But I believe it was the right thing to do, even if it did not overturn it. At the bare minimum, years from now, my daughter will know that I did whatever I had the opportunity to do to do something about it, to try to do something about it, to where she'll know that her daddy loved her enough to do that. If any kind of abuse or anything kind of happens, which honestly I hope I never get primary custody ever, if that could somehow magically, supernaturally guarantee that she'll never have sexual abuse from her stepfather. But if that ever does happen, which I pray to God that it doesn't, she'll know that her daddy tried. Her daddy tried to protect her, and the means that he had to do it. And that really is the primary reason why I filed in this modification for custody, even though I wasn't at the optimal circumstances I wanted to be in yet. I'm still living with my parents. They're great, wonderful people, but I'm 30 and I don't want to be here. But that's not an optimal circumstance. The court views fathers and mothers different. A mother living with her parents after divorce, totally okay. No problem at all. No negative side. A father, yep, totally negative. But that's where we were after 2 years of going through a divorce and finances being strained by a divorce process, and also paying for all expenses of the other side's living expenses, rent, house, internet, utilities, everything. And then this next process too. Didn't really present that availability for me to do that yet. But those are some of the things that going into it. That's what I'm facing. So how did the hearing go? I think overall the hearing went well. A lot of lies of my ex were revealed, and don't think she was in a very comfortable place, being basically proven to be a liar on most everything she said about the whole relationship over this guy that she lied about in court, saying she had nothing to do with, and now she's married to him. We went back, and there was things that we submitted into evidence in the divorce, but if you don't point, when you have a stack of 400 pages of writing of her writing back and forth to this guy when we were married, and you don't point those things to the judge isn't going to really look, because they're thinking if there's anything of real important significance, you're going to point that out. Well, that didn't happen last time. My lawyer of my divorce sucked and was intimidated by the opposing counsel. But anyways, that was still submitted as evidence, and so we were still able to use that into the hearing yesterday. And so they went through, and after some questioning and her deny, and still stating that there were only just acquaintances that talked a bit over Facebook Messenger and WhatsApp and text messaging and calling, that there wasn't anything romantic. He gave her a chance, would you like to change any of your answers? I'm about to show this document of WhatsApp of your communications back and forth with this guy. And she didn't. And then he went through and started reading and having her read somewhat different responses. We were talking about, when I am the mother of your children, I will be so good to them, I'll be the best mother. And when I am your husband, I will treat you like a bunch of flowery romantic language, and also talking about being husband and wife. So obviously that really made her look really bad for that, and so a lot of those lies were exposed, and her credibility was put on the table. And the judge we had was a very different judge experience than I ever had so far. It was kind of a judge that he would just chime in all the time, as if he was in questioning as well. Instead, when you're questioned by a lawyer, you may be answering a question, he may just stop and ask you a question, you stop answering that, and you answer the judge, and he might go back and forth with you a little bit, looking for clarification. And a lot of these times, he was making a lot of side remarks, so saying things like some of her answers, like I don't know, when she was answering about if she had a relationship with this guy or not, or there was something there prior to her move last year in June and getting married within the month of moving there. He was just kind of like, sure, it seems like some fishy going on there, I think. And different side comments like that. He was fairly entertaining, but he was pretty fair on both sides on making comments. And like I said before about the whole housing thing, he kind of like the opposing side didn't bring up anything about my living situation or anything like that. In fact, they really didn't bring up any negatives about me at all, which is very different from last time, because last time was a whole bunch of lies, and they don't have anything to bring up against me. Although, I mean, if they took a note from the judge to do it, because that probably would have played into where the judge was at. But I guess since the judge asked it, they didn't think like they needed to. But the judge kind of did lay into me about me being my parents after going through all this financial stuff and asking me why I'm still there, and he also wasn't saying the judge, so he doesn't understand the level of burden I had through the 2 years of going through the divorce, where I had to pay for everything on their side. So I was paying, I guess, if I was living somewhere else without actually living somewhere else. So, I mean, there's some things that he just didn't get with that, but, he still laid it into me and questioned me about it, asking what my plans are and all that. But, yeah, he was pretty entertaining, and just how he would side comment on things and ask his own series of questioning. Very different from what I've had before. I never had a judge ask questions directly like that before. So it was very entertaining. I mean, it wasn't boring at all in that side of things. And and for me, actually, it made the whole court scene a bit more comfortable. Maybe too comfortable at different points. But then again, I didn't have any hard questioning against myself, really, that I really felt too nervous about or anything. I mean, sometimes one lawyer or another may ask me a question that I don't really understand what they're asking. I may have to ask them to rephrase themselves, but that's generally it. So the judge was very interesting. And so I don't know if any of you knew, but my ex tried to she did file. She filed contempt against me last year because she had went and gotten insurance through her employer, and part of our decree is, when someone has insurance available to them at a reasonable cost, that they should obtain it. So she kind of did this all quick without giving me a notification. It's like, here, pay over $400. This is your share of the insurance that you have to cover. And I was kind of like, that seems like a lot. And, I inquired and talked to my lawyer, well, what am I supposed to do here or whatever? And, he told me to look up other insurances to find a better deal, and I did. I found insurance at the total cost. Now, this is outside of work. I don't actually have insurance at the place I work. They have a sharing thing, Christian Healthcare Ministries, which isn't insurance, but it is a form of healthcare. But that wasn't going to fly with any of my court stuff. That was pretty much destroyed during the divorce. that wasn't going to fly. But anyways, so yeah, I went and found insurance for a private insurance for Atlanta. It was $200 a month, so significantly cheaper. And that was a total cost, because I have to pay 75% of all premiums, all out-of-pocket expenses. I have to pay 75%. And so she was telling me my 75% was $400 a month, and that just didn't seem to add up to me. And also, I was also thinking, although I did not ask her at the time, because I always give her the opportunity to come clean with things. But I suspected that her new husband's 2 children, her stepdaughters, were on that plan too, and they were trying to get me to pay their insurance too, to pay for their kids. That I have definitely not fathered. And so, but anyways, I found insurance at more reasonable costs, and we tried to communicate with them, and they never responded to any of our emails. We had a bunch of inquiries because I didn't even get an insurance card from them or anything. It was just like, here, pay $400. I didn't get copies of the plan or anything. And so I went and got insurance, and I sent them information about everything. And then a week later, they filed contempt saying I wasn't paying what I was supposed to. I was extremely confident that, well, for one, I wasn't in contempt because this is at a reasonable cost. I was well within that. And whatever. So I was really certain that the thing wasn't going to matter, and what they did was kind of futile. And I was pretty sure that I was eventually going to find out that they were trying to fraud me. So coming to the new year, I ended up talking to the so my ex-wife's husband's ex-wife. You found that? My ex-wife's husband's ex-wife. She contacted me telling me about some of the insurance issues she was having with them too. And found out that, in fact, she verbally, communicated to me that, yes, her 2 daughters were on their plan too. So it was a fact that they were trying to fraud me and make me pay for their kids. So eventually, all that did come into the court, and when they tried to make a contempt case against me, the judge, before they even started doing it, the judge was like, move on, I'm not going to hold him, he's not going to be, contempt. Or whatever. He's like, move on, because he had already seen the stuff, and at that point, Carol had already admitted that the 2 girls were on the policy, and that in court was the first time she told me that the 2 girls were on the policy, so trying to fraud me and make me pay for the girls when I have no responsibility but to pay for her stepdaughters. And it was actually the first time in court that she officially told me that her new husband, that she was actually married, and that this man was living in the same house as my daughter. Now, I've known that, not from her lips, but I've known that for quite some time. But she had never told me. These are generally one of the things that, they want parents to co-parent on when there's going to be an introduce of another person who's going to be a parental figure. It's even like when they're starting to date, when they're going to be introduced to being around the child. It's something they want parents to talk about because of the impacts, what it is, so you're all on the same page, what's appropriate to call them or not. But she never did. I mean, it was never her intention. I mean, she doesn't want me in my daughter's life. And she wants to replace me with him. And so she's been telling Elena to call him Daddy. And that came out in court too. And didn't come very favorable to Carol for doing that either. Yeah, so basically those kind of things happened. The judge himself, he was looking and asking me questions of blatant abuse that I've seen. But we weren't there for blatant abuse that has happened. It's more for the attempt to keep it from happening, but also, basically revealing that the whole premise on why custody was given to her was a lie. That this whole thing of relocation was based on a lie, and that was clearly proven. But with either that said, I do doubt that the judge is going to flip it. I just don't think that's going to happen from what I've seen in my kind of gut feeling of how the judge was. The judge wasn't having all them lies. I mean, I don't know how that will affect her in his writing of the orders and making a decision, but he certainly wasn't okay with that. So, so after everything was over, and one thing that happened or didn't happen is there was a couple people I had that were going to Skype testimony, and my opposing side, they were going to have a couple people to Skype testimony, and I'm not even sure what happened. I think I still need to talk to my lawyer, but as we're going throughout the day, like, I didn't remember him saying anything that there weren't going to be any Skype testimonials, video testimony. But we ended up not calling any, and then it came to a time when the judge was asking the opposing counsel if they had any more witnesses, and they said no, just my client. So my ex only had herself represented. She didn't have anyone else. Her de facto adopted parents in Minnesota, who aren't actually her adopted parents. I mean, I think they care about her, but there's this weird dynamic. But anyways, they weren't there. They didn't testify. No one else came. Her new husband didn't came. No one came. It was just her testifying by herself. And the judge even asked her, well, why aren't, your adopted parents there? And she said, I didn't want them to come. And he was pretty skeptical of that, and he asked her, well, have they visited you since you've been in Texas? And it's been about a year. And she said no, and they haven't visited her once. And she gave some excuses, and the judge made a lot of comments about it. It was kind of pretty entertaining. But he was questioning. It seemed to me that he was pretty much thinking, well, you're going to start this life, and they even testified they were going to help you restart your life in Minnesota, and you pretty much bail on them and then go to Texas, and they paid for your big whiz-bang lawyer last time, so maybe things aren't all happy between that relationship anymore. As they believed that I was lying, saying that she was involved with this guy, and they believed her, and now she's married to him, so the natural outworking of that. But anyways, so at the end of it all, the judge didn't make a ruling, so there's no ruling yet. Both sides of the councils have 21 days to write up a resolution and send it to the judge, and the judge is going to look at them, and he may have already made this decision, but he'll look at them, and based upon what is written, that he'll make his ruling, and he'll make his own modifications to whatever one he chooses to customize it how he wants, and then he'll write his order, and then whatever he says, that'll be done. So I imagine to hear about an order in the next probably in a month to 2 months is my guess. So I don't think it's going to come before a month has passed, but I think it'll be done before 2 months has passed. That's just based upon previous experience with this so far. But this could be different. You could be a judge once he gets it, it's all right, let's get it done, kind of thing. I don't know, but that's what I suspect. So we'll see how it goes. So anyways, I just want to thank you all for your prayers and support. I'm really sorry I didn't get a video before this. I meant to send out a video to ask for prayers for this, but you can still be praying now as the judges are reviewing all the evidence and whatnot for this. So be praying for the judge and everything as we go through this. Process is still waiting, but I do feel like I'm finally getting close to the point where this whole chapter of divorce and custody and that battle of that whole stage is about to be over. I mean, I'm going to have to be dealing with my ex and co-parenting intensively until my daughter's 18, but even then there's still going to be, of course, interactions as we still have a daughter. But at least I feel like this part of the chapter is about to be over, where I can finally move on with the rest of my life and hopefully move out of my parents' house is goal number one, right along with some work stuff. So thank you for your prayers and support, and I appreciate it. Be praying about my finances. I got some debt rolled up from all this core expenses and everything, and really want to get that taken care of to finally be able to kind of move on and save up to get a down payment on a house to actually have an investment for a place I'm living. So that would be awesome. be praying for that. So things coming up for me and my daughter. Is this coming weekend's Memorial Day weekends. I'll be going out to Texas again to see her. And one interesting thing I calculated last night. I was just really curious on what the hard numbers were, and going to visit my daughter when she was in Minnesota and Texas and all that, and that together over the last year, I have driven around the world 1.25 times. So I've put on decently over 30,000 miles in my car just driving for parenting time with my daughter this last year. So it's been a lot. It's really taken wear and tear on my car, and I've had a couple of repairs that I've had to do. But it's been a lot of driving. And so we have Memorial Day this coming weekend, and then on the 8th of June, I'll be picking up my daughter for 5 weeks in the summer. And it'll probably be during the time when I have my daughter for my 5 weeks in the summer. I'll be here in Savannah. I'll probably get a final word from the judge. So we'll see how that goes. So a couple other things I've been doing, I'll just share since I'm just talking. This is kind of like a vlog. I've decided, I saw a picture of myself the other day. I was flipping through my old Facebook pictures from a while ago, and I didn't have Facebook at this time, but it's a picture I uploaded sometime when I was in college, back when I was like a senior in high school, with myself, my shirt off, trying to pose really cool and whatever, where I was fairly fit and in shape, and I got a six-pack and all that, and I was looking pretty good, and I saw that picture, and I'm looking at my dad bod right now, and I'm like, yeah, I need to get work on that. So I need to get it fit again. I want that back. So I've decided, I'm like, all right, I'm going to go for it. I'm going to get fit again. Not like jacked up and big and, big and bulky strength and really strong, but just like fit, ripped, healthy looking. So today is actually the first day that I started a kind of a new diet where it's going pretty extreme. I've read some of the studies and different things, so I'm going to try something that might have faster results than some other things. But essentially, and some way say that's keto, and maybe it is keto dieting. I didn't look at strictly into that. I just looked at some research and I'm going to go this way. So I'm pretty much going to be mostly eating like high rich protein stuff and very little carbs and very little fat. I got reserves. I'll be fine. And eating like greens and vegetables and stuff so I can get some good nutrition. But yet mostly as far as macronutrients, mostly protein, little to none fat, little to none carbs. So we'll see how that factors out. And at some point right here, I'll actually incorporate a fitness regimen into it. Right now, the day after court, I don't feel ready to hit the fitness side yet, but wanted to start the diet right away. So I got I also have some protein powder that I'm using too to hit those protein goals for today, because I want to hit about 100 grams of protein a day. So that was taking into account. I have this all natural stuff that's pretty good. So we'll see how that goes. So I might do like a progression of photos with that, and we'll see how my fitness goes throughout the 60 to 90 days. So my goal. So right now I have a friend who's been a bodybuilder, all sizes masters in sports science or something like that. Anyways, this is his life, and he's been doing fat checks with me for since 2015, I think. Whatever, and he checked me the other day because I wanted to check him before I started doing this, and my body fat percent right now is 24, and so my goal is to get down to about 12 or 10 in the next 60 to 90 days. So I've looked at my progression chart from years ago, and it's doable, and especially if I go this extreme. So we'll see what happens, but I have high hopes for it. Hopefully, I really just want to. I just want to look good. I just want to look good again, and whatever. So, yeah. So, yeah, that's all I got. And if there's one thing I can just leave you all with, also saying thank you to all of you, is one thing that has been chapter of the Bible that's really kind of helped me throughout the process of everything. Now, there's been several, but it's one that I actually say with my daughter every night before I put her to the bed, and it's actually 1 Corinthians chapter 13, which goes, if I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains, but do not love, I am nothing. If I give all that I possess to the poor and give my body over to hardship that I may boast, but do not love, I gain nothing. Love is patient, love is kind, it does not envy, does not boast, is not proud, is not rude, it keeps no record of wrongs. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. It always protects, always hopes, always trusts, and always perseveres. Love never fails. But where there are prophecies, they'll cease. Where there's tongues, they'll be stilled. Where there's knowledge, it'll pass away. For we know in part, and we prophesy in part. But when completeness comes, what is in part disappears. When I was a child, I talked like a child, I thought like a child, and I reasoned like a child. When I became a man, I put the ways of a child behind me. For now, you see, I screwed up on that. The little cough threw me off. For now we know in part, but then we shall know fully, even as we fully know. And I think I actually skipped over a point, but I'll continue. And now these three remain, faith, hope, and love, but the greatest of these is love. And essentially from that verse, and I actually skipped over and didn't do quite all of it. But essentially, like that set of verses is pretty much giving me like kind of the attitude of how we should go about like every interaction. If everything's not done with the motivation of love behind it, it's absolutely meaningless. You could be the most amazing, intelligent person or the most person with the greatest spiritual understanding and insight into the scriptures of the Bible, but if you don't do all these things, have the motive of love, it's meaningless. And so that's one thing I try to keep reminding myself throughout this whole process and keeping into the future, especially dealing with a volatile ex who's trying to poison my daughter against me, even though she's only 4. Is to try to do every action out of the motivation of love, and love for my daughter, and trying the best to love my enemies. It's really hard, and so I just want to leave you that as encouraging, and maybe for any of you, just as we go through our lives and we come across someone who has a different political opinion or something else, that our motivation and all that we do. And I'm not perfect. I don't always do this, but just the motivation to do it at first, that motivation and all we do is to do it out of act of love. So that's it. That's all I have to say. I hope you all have a wonderful evening and everything, and hopefully it won't be super long until my next update. So thank you all, and have a good night. Bye.